This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between. This week, The Steel Collar Man.
Over here we have these units, Series D5 Marksmen. Now they are equipped with infrared vision and laser rangefinders. When they leave this room, they will be combat ready.
I'd like to go up against one of these tin cans myself, just to test them.
They've already been tested, and they outperformed humans in every combat exercise.
Is that so? Maybe they haven't been tested against the right human.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast asking the president if it can keep its brain. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
Do you ever dream your hand is a powerful steel claw?
One of my favorite lines of this was when that man, apropos, we're meeting him for the first time, and that is his first line. I'm just like, okie dokie.
Yeah, like, he's an interesting character.
I also like his driver's like, no, sir?
Next time you're in a cab or an Uber or something, that's what you have to ask the driver.
I'll just sit there quietly for like 15 minutes, and then I'll just like... that man's perfect too. He's such a heavy, so like he gives it in like a real George C. Scott reading.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, this week we are watching the pilot for the Steel Collar Man. Of course, it never went to series, but it aired on NBC August 7th, 1985.
Yeah, a nice summer replacement.
Absolutely. And now, Jordan, just for funsies, we watched two other things that happened in 1985, a TV movie and a series. So I want to see, can you guess what those two were? A TV series and a TV movie.
Can you give me a hint?
It's 1985.
We watched a TV movie from 1985.
And we watched it. Okay, I can give you a hint. In that we watched the TV movie recently, and then we watched the TV series last year. Do you want a further hint? I can give you another hint with the TV series.
Yeah, give me another hint. Honestly, I forget where we are sometimes, and it all blends together. Because the only TV movie I can remember is Wasp Woman, but that was in the 90s.
Well, all right. I don't have any more hints for you. The TV series was recently, or the TV movie was recently. The other hint for the TV series, it was from last year, and you can never remember the name of it.
Oh, I know what it is. It's The Time-Traveling Family, isn't it?
It's The Otherworld, correct.
Otherworld. Okay, so that was the thing. And the TV movie would have been... What was on in 1985? Did it have something to do with trucking? Because it seems like this area always has people getting on trucks.
I would say the weird thing about the TV movie is it has a tangential relation to Steel Collar Man in that the lead character of this show, the actor, also was not in the TV movie, but would later be involved in a spin-off of the TV movie.
Oh, I don't know. Tell me, what was it?
It was Max Headroom.
Oh, Max Headroom. Oh, I wouldn't have got that.
Yes. Charles Rocket, D5B in this, was apparently also in the American TV version of Max Headroom.
Well, speaking of Steel Collar Man, and I'm sure you have more information.
I don't.
What's interesting about this is, at least for me, was the weird tropes that you get with androids and robots. And we've seen a lot of series now, from all the way from...
Quester tapes to Man and Machine to what was the one the Roddenberry one we watched way back? Did I already say Quester tapes? We already said Quester tapes.
Quester tapes and Quester tapes again. Anyways, there's been, that's only a couple examples.
We've only ever watched Quester tapes, you guys.
there's my point being, I don't have a great memory, but we've had multiple robots. And there's certain things that you always have to have with robots, and there's certain gags you have to have. And one thing I've noticed is robots are going to count cards. They're going to play pool.
Absolutely.
You're going to get robot vision.
Yeah, they're going to look at things, and it's going to have a whole readout on the screen of how it works.
They're going to have a problem with jokes and with getting
human emotions. This is hard for them.
Human emotions. But they're also going to be kind of lovable in their innocence. Maybe even in sort of like was it Man and Machine? Was that the one with the sexy robot?
Yes.
Yeah, where there's that, like She's a robot, but she's also kind of sexy because she's innocent. You know, there's not quite a little bit. There's a little bit of that in this.
There's a tiny bit of this,
but not quite to the same extent. I think because he's a guy.
It's because he's a man. So.
Yeah. But it is funny to see these things over and over and over. It's just like you're like, honestly, you could write this easily.
I felt this was very funnily like, you're right. All the robot tropes we've seen before come back into play, and also felt like it was also an episode of Automan potentially. Like all the beats of an Automan are here. I really felt like this was a distillation of a lot of things we've watched.
We should have mentioned Automan. He's, for all intents purposes, he's the same robot character.
Basically, he's just a hologram instead of a robot. All right, Jordan. Here is the IMDb summary for the Steel Collar Man. An android soldier and its creator are on the run from the government (bracket) which it was created for and wants to destroy it (end bracket), and find help from a truck driver with whom they help people.
Yeah, that
probably would have been the series.
Yeah. What's weird is, so this is going to be a pilot. This is, back in the time where they would air these things as a pilot, see if people like them, as a TV movie, and then they'll make a series. And you can really feel the desire to set things up in the series. You're going to get your bad guy. And this is going to be like a sort of fugitive-esque show where you're going to have someone chasing your main character every episode. That's what they kind of want. And we've said this multiple times before, but clearly The Fugitive was such a huge show, and that concept worked so well for television that the amount of shows that try to replicate it is astounding. And this is just one of those. So you're going to get that sense. Now, does it work as a TV pilot? Well, we'll discuss, but you really get the sense that they're setting it up for the long game of this is going to be a robot on the run in various plots, and there's going to be this FBI or whatever he is agent chasing him every week.
Yes.
Is he FBI? What is he?
He's military, I believe. Oh,
that's right. You're right. He is. He's some sort of vague military personnel person.
What I did find in this episode is that if you're in the military, you get a badge you can flash people, and if you flash at a drive-in, you get in for free.
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's a bonus.
Also, I don't know if this is a character trait, but you have so many guns, it's bizarre.
Well, the opening credits for this show are some of the best I've ever seen.
Oh, it's funny. Luke and I were talking on a couple nights ago. No, I was going to say not about the podcast, but clearly we were talking about the podcast. And the opening credit is, Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, it's mostly our main character, so Charles Rocket playing D5B, who's
Saturday
a robot.
Night Live alumni, Charles Rocket.
Yeah, who's wearing like a one-piece, his outfit's like a one-piece blue jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Sort of like he's a mechanic. And the opening credits are mostly him running towards the screen on running in pace, and then a reverse shot of him running away, but he never gets further because he's still running in the spot.
Yeah, he's running on the spot while they do like a Tron-esque landscape moving around him, which is very funny and very good. I loved it so much. And then while they're doing that, the forward shot of his face as he's like running on the spot toward the screen suddenly flash frames to the Terminator's face, basically. Like it's just a robot face flash frames where his face was, and then just flashes back to his face. And I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, but it lets you know what you need to know. You're like, hey, why is this guy running in place? You're like, oh, he's a robot. Well, that answers all my questions. I'll keep tuning in every week.
Well, they're very economical in this opening credits, because then like this is like most of where it happens, and then they cut to a shot of his creator, Dr. Fletcher, Dr. Connie Constance Fletcher. And you just see him laying on a like a table, old Charles Rocket, old D5B, and then she rips off his face to reveal the robot, and then it cuts back to like him running on the spot. I'm just like, oh yeah, I know everything I need to know. That lady created a robot, and this is that robot.
And I'll say this now: this time period is my favorite for what robots look like. When they take off his face, he looks great, and later on he's going to get shot and you'll see wires and stuff, and that's exactly what I want for my robots in television. I want cables and wires and lights that make no sense, but they look cool.
We're very much back to Beyond Westworld with these robots.
Exactly, yeah.
The episode starts on one of the best opening lines of a television series anywhere. What you hear is some anonymous military brass, and the first lines of the episode are, "A robot is a robot." And I was like, interesting. And the man will only refer to robots for the rest of the scene as robots.
Oh, and let me mention something real quick. This was written by, I don't know if you looked into this. This was written by Dave Thomas.
I'm going to talk about that because in this opening scene, what we see is three or four military guys. We'll never see them again, but they're basically discussing a new robot they've built, the D5B robot, which has a 5th generation computer brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's
good generation.
The 4th generation had a lot of bugs, so the 5th generation, they really worked it out.
And the problem with it is it allows the robot to program itself. It's essentially a sentient robot. And these military brass are pointing out just like, we don't need robots to think for themselves. What we need is we have all these trucks and tanks and vehicles. We just need robots who can drive a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're very worried that if they make a sentient robot, it will demand civil rights.
Which is weirdly kind of what I think the moral tale of this is, but it's murky at best in this, that there's this idea of autonomy or sentience of a robot is sort of what the plot is, but this is not a Roddenberry story. That this is not going to be a moral tale. It's just thrown in there.
Well, and then the military brass, in another bizarre turn, then proceed to walk into a bathroom to have a whispered conversation about how they're going to send our lead bad guy, the Heavy, A.G. Willis, to Washington to end this new robot program, and that'll be the end of this sentient robot.
So let me ask you this though. So feasibly in this world, the government has funded a robotic industry by the military, so it's under the military's budget, to create these robots for military purposes. But then they're angry about this one particular robot they created, so they want to just quash the entire program and cut funding. I'm like, does this make sense?
I think they just want to quash the one robot, but maybe it's the whole thing. I don't know. What's great though is they're having this whispered conversation about how they're going to send A.G. Willis to like crush the whole thing. We're stopping this A5B project or whatever. Or D5B, sorry. Mm-hmm. And as they're whispering, one of the bathroom stalls opens and they freeze. And who should walk out, Jordan?
Dave Thomas.
But Dave Thomas from SCTV.
Who's the writer of this?
Yes, who's the writer. Who then, like, the next scene, his credit comes up. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Why is an SCTV alum here?
Well, and what was also interesting, I wanted to know, I didn't look up that this was filmed in Canada, but also one of the scientists talking about in that room is also, and I don't think he's credited, but I recognized him. It's Derek McGrath, who's also a Canadian actor. And I was like, this has got to be shot in Canada. They didn't fly Derek McGrath anywhere. You know what I mean?
It could be. And it's very funny because like Dave Thomas isn't in the rest of it. This is just a little fun walkthrough cameo for him for a pilot he's written. Mm-hmm. So I was like, by the end of this scene, I'm like, who are these people? Why are they going to a bathroom to whisper about this? Why did Dave Thomas just walk out of the toilet?
There's no reason. It's just like, it's funny. He's the writer. It'd be funny if he had a Hitchcockian cameo.
At any rate, we jump to A.G. Willis, our Heavy, with the most severe face in the world. You'd never want to cross him.
he does have the most severe face in the world. This guy has never smiled.
And he's taken a trip to UIM, Ultra Intelligent Machines, where they build these robots.
Well, there's a point I like just before this, while he's driving, and I think he gets that line I said earlier where he's getting driven by his driver, and he just, apropos of nothing, goes, "Do you ever dream your hand is a powerful steel claw?" And the driver's like, no. Anyways, but he opens up a top secret memo, and it says top secret, but then right under the stamp top secret, it says robots in the armed forces. And I was like, I think you're giving away what the secrets are. They're robot secrets. Like, what could they be? There only could be one thing. The robots have gained sentience.
Absolutely. And he arrives at UIM. He gets a little tour of the place, and it's explained that these robots are not androids. They are analogs.
Yeah, I got the line. They're analogs. They're nuclear-powered mechanical facsimiles of the human body.
I know. My favorite part is just like, I'm like, okay, so I'm like, so they have all the organs of a human, but they're just run with pistons?
They didn't quite make that clear because they want to really make sure they're not androids. But for all intents and purposes, it's an android. But does it have human organs?
I think the idea is like they're almost human, plus a few bonus features they imply.
So these are, I guess, these are more like the modern Westworld, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, they bring Willis to meet the new D5B prototype, the one who's sentient, and he just got his leg fixed because he was fighting a shark.
Is that what they said? I missed that.
They're like, oh, we fixed your leg after that shark. And I'm just like, I would have liked to see that scene.
What was the pilot we watched where the opening scene was a guy fighting sharks? Do you remember that?
Oh, wasn't that not Gemini Man?
It was Gemini Man.
Under the water?
You're right. So it was the same kind of adventure.
And he's having a bit of a moment with his creator, Dr. Connie Fletcher, where she's quite clearly like hot for robot.
Yeah, it was a weird thing to get off right off the bat because I don't know what to say. It's like, oh, it's a doctor and it's a woman. You're like, oh, good. There's a female doctor. It's like, oh, but she also has the hots for her robot. That's her character.
You're gonna need a love triangle in this somewhere, or just sort of romance. So it's just like, this show is really great at just getting it out of the way.
Yeah, that's true.
And she's like, well, let's test your legs. They have a little slow dance together, and then as part of let's see if your leg works. Let's dance. And then as Willis walks in to meet him, I believe D5B is break dancing on the ground at that point. His legs working great.
Yeah. Well, it's 1985.
And Willis walks in and he informs everyone in the room that the president has decreed that he wants D5B's brain pulled out and put on his desk by 1700 hours.
So it was weird because it was specifically his brain. It wasn't, I want him deactivated and proof of deactivation, or even like, I want some physical component like a microchip or something. It's, I want his brain matter I want on my desk. Like, this president sounds a little off his rocker.
I want his brain. And Willis was like, I'll be back at 1900 hours to pick up that brain. See you guys later.
Yeah.
And of course, D5B does not like the sound of this. And he tells Fletcher, he's like, I'm going to go see the president myself and just ask to keep my brain. Though, as you mentioned,
they say that over and over and over. By the way,
yeah, that's the running
gag is I need to save my brain.
And as you've mentioned, he's a bit of an innocent, so he really doesn't know the world. Like, and I kind of like this about it. It's just like, this isn't a robot who's been like heavily programmed or trained. It essentially knows nothing. Like,
yeah, you're gonna get. They don't really lean into it as much as some shows you'd see from this time, but there's a little bit of the fish out of water of him not understanding humor, him not understanding basic things, so he has to sort of figure them out along the way. Again, they don't quite lean into it as much as you might think they do, because this is, for all intents and purposes, like, they need to motor through all the stuff because they're really just like, hey guys, we just want to give you everything you need to know for this series that you're gonna love, so we just got to get through it quick.
Yes. And the essential thing is, he's like, he sets off on his adventure, find the president, ask him to keep his brain. And Dr. Fletcher's like, I'm going to give you a tracking device so I can find you later, but you should get out of here. You're completely correct. Which leads to a great scene where he's like, he puts on a lab coat and he's walking out trying to like leave the UI, the ultra intelligent machines laboratory. And as he's leaving the front desk, the security guard front desk is like, oh, sir, you have to sign out.
That's right.
So he comes back. And he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know he's never signed out before. So he writes in the book, I'm going to see the president to ask him to keep my brain. And then he turns 90 degrees and walks through a plate glass window.
Yeah, why? I know it was like a gag, but I'm assuming at some point in his programming, he figured out how to open a door. So why he just walked through a glass door? It's not like there was some sort of distraction or something, or he didn't understand. It's just be like, he's a robot.
It's just very funny to do that cut where he just walks straight through a plate glass window. I was rolling in the aisles.
So he breaks the glass, and then they sort of realize he's escaped, and like the alarm goes off. And there's a weird thing, and I don't know if it matters about anything, but the alarm goes off, and they have a shot of all the other robots who
the not sanctioned ones.
Yeah, weirdly all don't have hair. They're all just like bald, and for whatever reason. But when the alarm comes up, they all sit up, they all look. And then are like, huh, and then I'll lay back down. But I didn't know what I was supposed to get from that. Just, there's robots?
It is again a running gag, because later in the episode, a character at the lab will make a call, and someone's telling him he's going to get fired if he doesn't fix this or something. And as he's yelling into the phone, not looking over his shoulder, all the robots look up to listen to the call. Like, they all sit up on their tables, and then when he turns around, they all lay back down, and he's just like, don't look at me!
Yeah, but what is the joke?
It's just funny watching the synchronicity of all those robots.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. They
all
funny.
Sit up at the same time. They're like, oh, and then they lay back down. Look at how much they've synchronized.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, here's the thing. He gets out of this thing. He immediately steals the first car he sees, and it is a moment where it's just like he understands the concept of. He can look at it. He can see through it with his X-ray robot vision. He's just like, oh, this is some sort of machine that travels forward. I'm going to get in it. Start it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he has that Terminator view that you've seen before. There's some text on screen, and he looks at something. But what they get is sort of like, you can see the glowing components of in this instance, like the combustible engine of a car. He can see how it works. So the joke is he gets in a car, he can turn it on, but he doesn't know how to drive it. Then it takes him a couple minutes to figure out, I need to steer it, which he will figure out. And it's like, that's the gag.
The gag is he gets in, he starts it, and the car just starts driving, and he's just like, this machine wishes to destroy itself. Because he doesn't understand he needs to operate it. So the car is literally just a car smashing into things through a parking lot, which is just the first of this show is very concerned with being a destruction derby. So much shit gets trashed.
It's true. So this car, he's sort of he's off, and now you know that kind of the chase is on, and it's pretty quick that this car breaks down, right? I'm assuming because he just didn't put gas into it.
I think it's the case. Next time we see him, he's pushing the car with one hand because he's so powerful down the road because it's run out of gas. And a trucker drives by, a man named Red, sees D5B, pulls over, and offers to give him a ride.
And he's played by Hoyt Axton.
What would I know Hoyt Axton from?
The dad in Gremlins.
Okay, right.
There you go.
He Red really likes they hit it off right away. I think as Red will say later, D5B has a real friendly face, a person you want to like.
That's right. Let me just getting off topic for a minute. D5B, I didn't think that worked very well. It wasn't like R2D2. That works. D5B.
That's it. And it is only to lead up to a gag where I believe Red asks what's your name? And he's like, D5B. He's like, what was that? D5B. Did you say Steve? Yes, I said Steve.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't even C sounds like Steve. He didn't say it's C is the letter or whatever. It's like, oh, you said Steve. It's like D5B doesn't sound like Steve.
It's nope, Steve sounds like Steve.
Yeah. Anyway,
Red is basically immediately picks this guy. He just wants to talk about how aliens are real, the government's covering it up, and how you can't trust the government. And of course, this is where D5B learns his first and only joke when he asks D5B, where are you headed? He's just like, I'm going to see the president to ask him to keep my brain. And Steve's just like, or I believe Red says, it's like, well, probably because he needs his own brain. Or who says it? Is it him or does Fletcher say it earlier? Someone gives him that joke, and that's the rest of the show.
Yeah, that's the basic joke to some extent is I need my brain, and as we all know, politicians the worst thing, and no one likes the president, so he needs a brain too. That's this gag that everyone loves, and he says it with such a straight face that everyone just thinks he's being very dry.
Yes. Anytime anyone asks them where he's going, he's like, I'm going to ask the president if I can keep my brain. And as soon as they are like, what? He's just like, unless he needs a brain himself. And then everyone's like, you're a very droll robot.
Yes. And everyone in this world, they're very untrusting and hate government. So it's a good gag.
It's a great gag. Anyway, Red eventually drops old D5B off at a service station to get gas for his car. And as soon as he drops D5B off, the first thing he sees getting out of the car is a big sign for a used car lot, a big billboard. And in the corner of it's a little guarantee, if you don't love this car, I'll do something, or some guarantee from the owner. And it's signed by the owner under the name, I believe his name is Don Liddell, President.
Yeah.
And of course, D5B focuses in on the word president. He's like, well, there's the man I need to go talk to about my brain.
And this is where I think the show could have leaned into this a little bit better, because I thought this was a cute moment and an interesting thing for him. He has this journey, but he doesn't have the tools intellectually to be able to actually accomplish what he needs to. But this still propels him in a direction. I thought there was something interesting about that. That would be how you work. He's looking for president. He doesn't know what he does. He sees a sign that says president. He goes, that must be the president I'm looking for. And I thought that was good. And again, they don't do enough with that, I think, in this episode, because for whatever reason, they really want to get to monster trucks smashing other trucks. So there's no time.
It is nice. I like this concept. This is not a robot who has Wikipedia built into his brain. This is a robot who truly knows zero about anything. So when he's just like, I need to go ask the president to keep my brain. He doesn't ask any further questions. He's just like, next thing, get brain from president. And just the first time he sees the word president, he's like, I guess that's where I'm going.
Yeah, and I think is this when we get a cut, a really hard cut to introduce a bunch of new characters? What? But no, so we get a hard cut to this. I guess it's a car dealership, right?
Yeah, a used car lot.
And what we see is a cement truck being backed up, but not only backed up, but smashes through stuff.
No, it's like going Terminator 2 style, full speed through another billboard and just plowing through every single used car on the lot, destroying every used car, and then backing up to a convertible. Two goons get out and then fill that convertible with cement.
Yeah, so, and you go, oh, but there's one interesting thing. Did you notice who one of those goons was?
No.
So one of the goons is Robert O'Reilly, and I recognized him immediately. And anyone who's listening, who's a fan of science fiction, he played Gowron in Star Trek.
Oh, that was Gowron?
Yeah. Do you
I
know
gotta
which
go
one?
back and watch it again.
Because that actor has very prominent eyes. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I know who this is. And it took me a minute, and I was like, oh, it's Gowron. It's got to be Gowron. And then I just loved that I got to see a younger version of him. But
That's amazing.
But anyways, yeah, so what you get is that
Don Liddell, the owner, owes money to a mob boss named Big Jake.
Yeah, so they want $50,000 from him. I think what it is a gambling debt. He's been, I think, playing cards, and he's lost $50,000 to the mob. They are now, although to be fair, they've just done way more than $50,000 damage to his livelihood and his business. So I don't know what the deal is, but anyways, they are now threatening him, and he's in a tough state. So I really hope that some sort of robot comes by to change his fortunes.
Well, it is great because he comes out, watches this all happen to his business, then walks back into his trailer/office, and DB5 is just sitting in there, scares the shit out of him.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He sort of immediately starts to treat him like he's another goon. He's like, I just told you guys that I would give you money. But I'm like, did that make sense that he thought, wouldn't you not just thought it was another customer?
I don't know. I think he was just frightened by this man who was in his office suddenly. And, of course, DB5 and me is like, hello, Mr. President. May I keep my brain, please? To which my favorite response is Liddell's just like, he's like, you want my advice? Best way to keep your brain is not to play cards with the mob. And I'm like, good advice.
Yeah. But I like how non-subtle this turn is, because they need to get to the point they're going to get to, which is you realize the robot can count cards. He can not just count cards, but he can spot exactly where the card is in the deck because he's just watching.
Yeah. D5B is like, what are cards? I've never heard of them. Liddell just has an unopened pack of cards on his desk, tosses to DB5. He opens them, realizes what does he say? These are just 4 sets of sequential numbers. Allow me to order them for you. He does one shuffle and they're back in order. And of course, at this point, Liddell sees an opportunity. He's like, I'm going to teach you to play poker. And then we're going to go to Big Jake's casino and get me out of debt. Which great plan.
Yeah, it is a good plan. And again, as I've said, we're going to get to a scene, and you think it's going to be a card scene. It's going to quickly turn into pool. But let me ask you, Luke, we have seen pool so many times in these TV shows. What is so evocative or cinematic about pool? Why do people always, of all the games to choose?
I think of a game of chance, pool probably is just the most interesting to show on television. It's a game of poker is fine, but it's not that action packed.
I know pool's more interesting than poker because it's just people sitting looking at cards. I get that, but I guess it makes sense in a game of chance, but it just seems odd. We've seen it so many times. Pool. I'm like, darts. How about darts?
I think part of it is too, if you look at where we see all the pool games, I think they more or less fall in this late 70s, mid 80s period, and I think maybe it was just a time when that was just in the vogue.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe it was just easy. A pool table is an easy thing to get your hands on. It's easy for the audience to relate to, and it's just a quick shorthand, maybe.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Anyways, Don Little, this president of this used car company, takes D5B immediately to the gangsters to go he shows up and they're like, where's our money? And he's like, hey, I got a better thing for money. What if I double or nothing? And they're like, no, it's not enough. And then he just has the deed to his business, which by the way,
he's ready to go.
Which I should note is worth not very much now because all the cars have been destroyed. But regardless, he's like, I'll actually give you the deed to my company instead of the money. And I know it looks like he's really he's really betting on it. But if I was the gangster guy, I'd be like, I don't want to run your business. You're not going to make enough money that's going to be worthwhile. Just give me my money.
I mean, it is a good question. I mean, to be fair to Big Jake, the gangster.
Big Jake, that's right. Yeah.
Tosses the deed down and says, I'm not going to play poker, though. My friend here is going to play for me. And Big Jake's like, all right, but one condition. We're not playing poker because I can see an obvious scam coming.
Yeah, and I did like that. I thought that was pretty good because what you think it would be was he's like, I'll take that offer. But he was like, no, you're clearly trying to screw me over with someone who's very good at cards. So guess what? You'll have to play pool. But thankfully for Don Little, that D5B is, well, he's not a robot. What is he? He's an
analog.
He's an analog. So he can figure out the geometry of...
Well, as he says, he gets to the table and he says, it's just geometry.
Yeah. Which I don't know if it is, but...
I like this scene too. It's very funny. It's very cute. It's playing on all the tropes. As he looks down at the table, we get robot vision, and he basically draws a line so he can break with the cue ball and sink all of the balls. And then he's like, I understand. I will sink all the balls. And Don Little says, you don't have to sink them all. Just either the stripes or the solids. That's it. And he's just like, I will make the appropriate adjustments to my calculation. And then of course he breaks with the cue ball. Every single colored ball goes into every single pocket immediately. Like, it's not like he plays a bunch of shots. One shot sinks them all. And then as the 8 ball's rolling, he's like, Mr. Liddell, I should have asked you. There's one extra ball, the 8 ball. Should I have sunk that as well? And then he's like, yes. He's like, good, I did. And then the ball goes in the hole.
And I like just how fast this scene is. They've put like cash on the table, which I guess is $50,000.
It's not even cash. It's just the deed. So
it's just the deed back.
When DB5 sinks all the balls, Liddell just grabs his deed back off the table and he's just like, all right, thanks guys, I win. And he just like runs out of there as fast as humanly possible, which I'm like, good move. Don't give them any time to recover from this.
I think this kind of like their plot's going to be that Liddell was like, we're going to get rich this way.
Yeah, I'm going to take you to Reno.
Yeah, I'm going to take you to Vegas and we're going to do a bunch of betting. But these gangsters essentially are like, They're not going to happen.
Get scammed like this.
Yeah, so
like,
they
as soon as they walk out of the room, Big Jake's like, go get them.
So now let me ask you, Luke, if you were going to follow someone, what kind of vehicle would you choose?
Well, what I would do is I would get into my forklift because it's the only way for me. A fairly Big Jake is big. He's a big man.
There's a reason they call him Big Jake.
We see him riding in a forklift, like not driving it. He's on the forklift part, being raised up, pushed forward.
It's a man lift, anyways. But
a man lift. The camera pulls back, and his giant monster truck is parked in the middle of 2 lanes. And he's getting into it because the only way for him to access the monster truck he drives is via forklift.
And let's just say it's a monster truck. It's something you would see at like a stadium crunching other cars. The tires are the size of a normal car. It's so bizarre they've added into the show. I just know someone somewhere was like, guys, we have access to a monster truck. Can you please write this into the show? Because there's no real reason for this other than it sets up some fun crunching of cars later.
It is the most outlandish, wild, unexpected turn to cut to like a forklift and a man getting inside of it. And then, of course, it leads to just a quick chase down the highway. Monster truck's chasing Liddell. The monster truck manages to hit the car and Liddell's, he's like, my used cars are the best. Don't worry, we'll get away. They're not the best. He immediately spins out, and the monster truck is able to rear up on its back tires. It rears up
like it's an elephant.
It's like it's an elephant. And as it's about to smash Liddell and D5B, the car stalls out. They drive away, and we cut inside, and Big Jake's inside. His car started out, and he says, you can have power, you can have fuel economy. You can't have both.
Yeah, so he's run out of gas for some reason. So there we are.
And it just to give Liddell and D5B the chance to get away again. They're driving down. They're like, you know what we should do? Hide till it's dark out so no one can see us. Let's pull into this drive-through here. I'll take you to a movie.
You know what I like though?
Drive-in. Sorry, drive-in movie.
He's like, let's hide out at this drive-in. I think the argument being there's a whole bunch of cars and it's dark and they won't see us. I'm like, okay, sure, I'll allow it. But then if you're just hiding out, they park their car and then immediately go get a bunch of snacks. I'm like, yes, you don't need the snacks. You don't need the popcorn and the gloss sets or whatever you're getting.
They're gonna get a little treat,
I guess.
What's funny is throughout this episode, there's actually a few B plots running, and we'll just talk quickly about A.G. Willis because we left him back at the whatever you call it, the robot factory.
Yeah.
DB5 had stolen his car, so up till now he's been trying to find his car to get it back. He does eventually find it, and highway patrol pull up, and they don't believe he's with the military. They think he's the one who stole the car. So there's like a long period of time where he's being held by these police officers until the military can call and tell them, no, you've got the wrong man.
And there's a lot of gags of like, they search him and he's got a lot of guns on him. And I don't know. It seemed like a real time waster, to be honest, but I guess it's funny.
Well, they didn't push the gag far enough. Like when they pat him down, he's got 2 guns and a knife on him, and I'm just like, you needed a couple more things on him, I think, to land that gag.
Yeah.
But the point is, he's been sort of out of the show, getting his car back, dealing with these police, and as Liddell and DB5 turn into the drive-in, A.G. Willis is driving by that same drive-in, and somehow knows Little's car on site, a man he doesn't know DB5's with, a man he's never encountered before, and he's just like, well, I'm going to go in the drive-in and get them.
Yeah.
And the only reason they're saved is because when they're buying snacks at the concession stand, this very loud couple walks into the concession stand and is just shouting to anyone who'll listen that they need to buy a radio. The radio in their car doesn't work, and they won't be able to hear the movie.
It's a weird way to set up what has to happen. But yeah, you have this very, very loud couple who are wearing like matching bowling jackets, and they basically are like, we want to watch this movie, but our radio's broken. So what?
Will someone sell us a radio?
Yeah, I don't remember if it's D5B or Dawn, but someone comes up with a plan like, what we'll basically do is, it kind of happens off camera, but you, as a viewer, understand what happened. He's basically like, why don't we just swap cars? I'm a used car salesman. I'm going to give you a car. I like it sight unseen. We'll just switch cars.
I know. This couple just agrees to switch cars because their radio's broken.
Yeah, so they get into the other car and they switch cars. But what happens is immediately when the couple get into the car, J.G. Willis, the agent, he's in the background with a gun and he's like, "Who are you guys?" It's like, "Oh, can you believe it? No, well, not only do we get a crappy car, but there's a military agent in the car." And the other guys are able to drive off now. They get off.
And of course, the couple's just like, "That's our car driving away." So Willis is like, "Well, I guess I'll chase them now."
Yeah, so he can chase them. But then, to add one more beat to this drive-in, in comes the monster truck with the 3 goons in it. And they also can spot the car.
Well, I like they drive in, they block the projector with their monster truck because it's so big, and immediately the crowd turns on them and starts throwing popcorn at them.
No. That doesn't happen right away. The crowd really turns on them because they come in and they go, "There's the car," and they drive over an entire row of cars and get
with the monster truck, demolition derby style.
Yeah, and then go, "Oh, I don't think they were in the car." Then they pull around and block the screen, and then everyone in the drive-in gets out and starts throwing popcorn and started gangs up. And what I like is they're basically, everyone's so angry because of all the destruction, and I assume because they're wrecking the movie. Everyone's so angry, so one of the gangster hoods guys pulls out his gun and sort of shoots it up in the air, and you think that the crowd will scatter.
The mob. Yeah.
But it doesn't. What happens is, because it's America, everyone has a gun, and they all just pull out shotgun stuff. They just start shooting the car, and they're just like, "Uh-oh, I guess we're here for a while."
Yeah. They blow out the tires of the monster truck, and this is the last we'll see of Big Jake and his goons, and it ends with Big Jake just saying, "Well, I guess we're watching the movie."
Yeah, and it's like, I think you have other problems. People are shooting shotguns at you.
At any rate, this gets rid of that whole Big Jake problem. That's solved apparently.
Yeah,
and A.G. Willis is chasing down D5B and Liddell in their car down the nighttime highways. He's firing his gun out the window. The windows are breaking. They pull off the road into it's dark. It's either a lumber mill or some sort of mine, maybe. Who knows? It's just some sort of industrial complex.
Yeah, some sort of factory of some sort.
And I thought for a moment that Willis had killed Don Little because they stopped the car and DB5 pulls Liddell out and he's unconscious, and I'm like, "Oh man, is he dead? Is the used car salesman dead?"
I think it's just bad editing. I think what happened
he's just supposed to have been injured.
Yeah, I think they were driving so fast that he hit the steering wheel and knocked himself out. It was something to that effect, but the way it was shot, it's not clear. So for some reason they arrive and he's unconscious. And D5B's got to pull him out of the car, and sort of while he's taking care of him, in shows up Agent Willis.
Yes, Agent Willis. And they have their big showdown. Willis has been craving it since the beginning of the episode. He's really wanted to see what one of these robots can do against a real human badass like himself. And of course, he's got a shotgun, so he blasts old DB5 a couple times. DB5 goes down. He goes to gloat over his body, but DB5 is injured and in trouble, but he's not down. He's in fact still able to mimic old Agent Willis's voice. That's freaking out.
That's how he distracts him. He mimics, it's not only a mimic. I think it's a recording from the beginning of the episode when Willis had seen him, and it throws him off so much that it distracts him for a moment. He's able to D5B is able to knock the gun out of his hand, and now he sort of gets up, and they're like, no, he's like, well, we're equal now, but you can still see he's been badly injured. And I think we get a couple robot vision shots of his own analysis of his body to show where the injuries are. Here's what I didn't get though. So he's the shotgun clearly did some major damage to him.
Yes.
And then Willis pulls out another, it's a revolver or something like that, and he shoots him multiple more times. But this doesn't seem to have any effect on him at all. Is it that the shotgun was such a powerful weapon that it made damage, but the other gun doesn't, or that the damage is just minor? Because it seemed like there's no effect on him for the other gun.
Yeah, we see his robot vision where we see the two a printout of his body and where the damage is, and we just see more little pinpoints of damage.
Yeah.
I think maybe the idea is just a revolver's bullets aren't quite enough to do anything.
Right.
And he's a real Terminator that way.
So yeah, so it's just it doesn't hurt me. So
Willis goes to his trunk.
He goes to his trunk and pulls out he goes through because he has again dozens of guns, and the first thing he pulls out is I don't think it's a missile launcher, but it's something similar.
No, what it is we see a pan down of his trunk. There's thousands of guns inside of it, a comical amount of guns, and the shot ends on a huge machine gun. And you think he's going to pull that out, but instead what he does is he pulls out an old Western Winchester.
Oh,
and he does some fancy flipping around of the Winchester, like you would see in a cowboy movie. And once he's got it loaded, he stops and he's just nah, this isn't right. And he just puts it back and then pulls out the machine gun.
So he has a machine gun now, and he's going to mow down D5B. But just at this time, in arrives, I can't remember the...
Red the truck driver, and Dr. Fletcher arrive just in time to save DB5.
Yeah.
And it's because over the course of this episode, this is the other plot, is that Dr. Fletcher has been trying to use the tracking device she gave DB5 to find him.
Yeah.
He forgot it in the cab of Red's pickup truck. So the two of them meet up, and Dr. Fletcher explains to him, Steve is in fact a robot, and not, as the government-leaked newspaper story says, a Soviet spy.
Yeah, and just as we take a little moment here, I didn't understand what benefit that was of even mentioning there was... they're trying to track the guy down. So I guess the idea is we're going to plant a story so people will alert the press so we'll find him. But why say he's a Soviet spy? Why not just not mention it at all? And isn't it easier to find someone if no one knows you're looking for them?
I mean, I think it's just a gag around the idea of the 80s and the fear of Soviets, and the government needs to find him fast. So if they've got a big photo of DB5 and he's a Soviet agent, everyone's going to turn him into the police the second they see him. I think that's just the gag.
Right. So I mean, the important part though is the doctor and
Red meet up.
They meet up and they drive for it's maybe 2 scenes. It happens very quick, and you have to have this they get along. He's yeah, I like the guy because he's anti-government, and the president's stupid.
Yeah.
And they get along that way.
Team up.
So they're friends. They show up just at the right time.
I like that they team up to find him, and Dr. Fletcher, rightly so, is just how are we ever going to find him without the thing? And Red's just I'm a truck driver, so I drive a lot. I'll find him. I'm yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know. I kind of like that sort of thing. It's just it's a plot hole, and they're he's a truck driver. He knows the roads, so he just
knows the roads. Don't worry
he knows
about
the
it.
roads. Don't worry about it. So, and guess what? He does know the roads because he shows up just in the nick of time.
Yeah. He of course also has a gun in the cab of his truck, so he opens fire on Willis. Willis has to take cover, allowing DB5 to carry Liddell to the giant semi truck, and then the semi truck drives the slowest getaway possible in this car.
Yeah.
And since it's the end of the episode, Willis kind of gives up. He's I'll get you next time.
No, yeah. I got his actual quote. He says, "Next time, pal, I'll be ready."
Yeah. Real setting up the next encounter.
Yeah.
And the episode ends with Dr. Fletcher repairing D5B in the back of a local appliance store.
Yeah.
Thankfully, his parts are the same as a washing machine.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because she's doing it, and Red's both Don Little and Red are waiting outside. And what's funny is I know both those actors, but they're very similar looking. So it's odd that they cast both of them. They're both kind of schlubby, kind of overweight 50-year-old men that look exactly the same. But anyways, they're waiting, and there was a weird scene added. So they're oh, is he gonna make it? I don't know. And of course he will make it. And he comes out, and I'll mention one other thing after I mention this, but he comes out, and the doctor's starts talking to the guy who owns the appliance store, I guess, and he's
because she let him use the back repair room.
He's you did some amazing things in there, and she's well, you can't tell anyone. He's oh, you're right, I can't. And I was what? Why are you even adding this scene in? Dude, you don't need this guy. This doesn't add anything to anything.
There's just gonna be strangers or friends you haven't met yet. You're gonna meet a lot of friends on this journey.
But one thing that made me laugh was how they had dressed him. Now that you're gonna see that every episode he'll be dressed in whatever the local attire is, and he's sort of I think wearing I don't know, jeans and a flannel shirt or something. But he also seems to be wearing a MAGA hat, doesn't he?
I hadn't noticed, but perhaps.
Yeah, he is. I think he is.
But yes, it's sort of wrapping it up. DB5's fine. Him, Fletcher, and Red are about to go on the road for more adventures. He says goodbye to Don Little, the car dealership, because he's not coming with them. And Little says, I hope you find the president. I hope he lets you keep his brain. Oh, and if you do see the president, can you ask him to give us car dealers a break on Japanese imports? And DB5's like, I will be sure to do that.
I know. It's such a timestamp, huh?
It's a very funny little joke to pop it with. And then, of course, he makes the same joke as always about if he finds the president, he'll get his brain back, unless the president needs a brain. And Red's just like, we've got to teach you a new joke, DB5. And DB5's like, why? This joke isn't broken.
And then music plays and they drive off into the sunset for more adventures.
More adventures.
Yeah, and that's the pilot. I mean, it goes by really fast. It's what, about 45 minutes? But it feels like it's about
45-minute pilot, but it feels lighter than that.
It feels like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a real light. It feels like a real light time.
Well, we're at that point. What do you think? Do we want to rate this thing? Do you have any other thoughts about Steel Collar Man? Like, do you think this was a? I mean, here's the thing about it. I think this is not a great pilot. However, this seems like it had enough of legs. You know, like it had enough of legs. It had enough to make a series. It's a silly concept, but like that fish out of water, learning something every episode is enough to at least have a season.
Here's I mean I do want to rate it, but here's what I wanted to talk to you about with this. And I don't know if you're going to agree with me because I'm not sure we saw this in the same vein. But off the top, I was like, this is really weird. A robot is a robot, and then they sneak into a bathroom to have a conversation, and then who comes out of the bathroom but one of the Mackenzie brothers? And I realize he wrote it. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I suspect this is a parody in the vein of Heat Vision and Jack. Like, this is actually, he's just like, I'm going to write something. It's going to be the dumbest, silliest thing ever based on the tropes of this genre. And the problem maybe with it is, and why it like maybe can be viewed as not a parody and as just a bad version of these shows, is that these shows are so close to parody themselves that I think they're hard to parody. But I had a feeling watching this that this was entirely meant to be a joke, because everything's dumb. Why is he driving a monster truck? Because it's the silliest, weirdest thing Dave Thomas could think of. Like, why does he tell the president that I have a brain? And why do they hit that beat over and over again? It's because it's such a bad, stupid joke that you just like hit that beat. And I think this is supposed to be a parody of the genre.
I can see your point. I don't know if the execution shows that, or if the director and the production team behind it felt the same way. I felt like they were trying to do this show, and it did feel like a retread of these other shows. You could very well be right. I don't know if what we see on the screen lends enough to convince me, though.
Well, this is going to affect my rating because I feel strongly this was mostly meant as a joke. Like, everything that's lazy and bad is actually just lazy and bad because he's using those to make a joke about the genre.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a difference. I think it's kind of just lazy and bad.
No, I that's where I think I disagree. I actually think it wasn't a perfect parody. Like, I think Heat Vision and Jack does a better job parodying this genre. But I do feel like everything I saw in it, the way it was cast, like all the cast is done to be too over the top.
You feel like this is a Paul Verhoeven movie is what you're saying.
It is meant, I think, to be a light parody of this kind of like robot on the run show. And it still has to hit all the same beats because they're trying to make it a series. So that's kind of where it falls flat, is they don't push the parody far enough. But every turn of it made me laugh because I recognized the beat from a million shows we've watched before, and I recognized them as like just a like joke about that beat. So for me, I'm gonna give it a 7, Jordan, because I think this was like a straight up parody of the genre, and it made me laugh because I could see everything they were like kind of making fun of.
Right. See, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I entirely agree. I think it kind of was a retread, and even if it was let's say you're right and it was a parody of things, I don't think the execution made that clear then. And I think if even if I'm taking that as truth, I think the execution was not great then. I still got to give it a 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. No, I had a great time watching it. I thought it was laughing.
I thought it was fun though.
I thought it was very funny. Like, every joke made me laugh because I realized I'm like, this is just absurd. Like, every choice they're making is the worst choice, but it's because they're trying to make the worst choice. Like,
yeah, maybe
his monster truck stalls out. Why? You can have power or fuel economy, not both. It's just like, that's it. It's just to get that line across, that like incredibly stupid line.
You know what? I would definitely recommend it to people because it's a fun, silly 45 minutes, and you could do much worse.
I agree. I think if you have an interest in like Automan or that kind of things, I think like you should watch this because like Dave Thomas wrote a weird, jokey version of Automan. But like,
yeah, Automan,
I wish Automan
or
was
Gemini
like this.
Man, or Beyond Westworld, or Galactica 1980. It's all in that vein.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're right. The biggest sin of it is which is a thing I like in my comedy and my parodies, is he tried to like keep it true to the genre. But I think the problem is this genre, like, to be true to this genre, it's really hard to parody because the difference between this and an episode of Automan is negligible. The only difference, I think, was that the people on Automan don't realize they're doing a bad job.
I might have to look more into this to see if that was the case, but either way, it's a silly, fun 45 minutes.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's wrap it up, Jordan. We don't need to talk about Steel Collar Man anymore. There's not much written about it online, so I couldn't find a lot of details.
No, the only thing I'll mention is one of the few things I found was someone who went to the test, like before it aired, they sat in a room with like buzzers and stuff, and they were just talking about that everyone in the room hated it. And he was like, I just never thought I'd see it aired. And then he said a year later he saw it on TV, and he's like, I thought this would never make it on there. All of us hated that show in the room.
I did see a few actual like more contemporary reviews of it, and they were very negative. But I also think it's, in my opinion, and obviously I could be mistaken, they were taking it very much at face value. As like this was supposed to be very like taken very seriously, a serious attempt at the genre. So I think it depends how you choose to view it.
Yeah. Well, and that's Steel Collar Man.
All right. Well, you can email us as always at continuumdrag@gmail.com. And on Instagram and Twitter, there's some great clips from Steel Collar Man. I haven't pulled them yet, but there's lots of fun stuff in Steel Collared Man. We're definitely going to have him walking on the spot in that Tron landscape.
Yeah, that's funny. What's funny about it is at the end of the opening credits, they seem to go on longer than you need to, and it's just him running with nothing. There's no text of like stars or anything. It's just him running, and he's running away from the screen. I'm like, why? Why am I still seeing this?
Because it's so funny. It's like, it is almost Automan's opening, but it's just like, to me, it's just like, this is the perfect parody of that. Like, it made me laugh so hard, and I'm just like, this is such a funny execution of this thing that I've seen a million times. But it's such a like dry execution of that like it can be mistaken, I think, for being exactly what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And that's where we differ.
Yeah, we might just differ. But yes, you can reach us at, what is it? continuumdrag@gmail.com or at continuumdrag at Twitter. We already said all that.
Yeah, I think we went through all that. You're just like, where are we? What's happening?
Yeah.
At any rate, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I will see you next week.
I will see you then. Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.